Hey there, comic friends, I'm Travis, and I don't know what this is. It's not Monster Comic Review, it's closer to no capes. I'm just going to talk about 3 books. I didn't get my comic books this week, so I thought I would talk about some books. This is kind of overdue. I've been talking about wanting to do this for a few weeks now. Some of these books, the next issue is about ready to come out. I'm going to talk about them some of them in a larger sense than the actual individual issue per se. Just because these are books I don't see a lot of people talking about, or I've seen people talk about them in a way that feels discouraging to me. And I love the books, and so I want to talk about them as best I can to put them in as good a light as possible so people are buying them so I can get more excellent books like these. So anyway, so it's 3 books I'm going to be talking about. The first one is Thumbs. This is an Image comic book. This happens to be part 3 of 5. It's about a character whose name is Thumbs. That's his nickname. He is a video game prodigy, but in kind of a unique way in that he just is really lucky kind of thing. There are people who are smarter than him. There are people who are better than him. He just could play the odds really well. And why does that matter? We're set in a just a near future where the internet largely has run its course in a lot of ways. A lot of what's going on now in the seedier side of the internet and social media and that sort of stuff has played itself out or played itself to a point in this book. These kids were recruited through a MOM program. I can't remember exactly what MOM stands for now, but basically it's like an onboard computer they pack along with them that helps them potentially interpret the world, Wikipedia things as need be and whatnot. And they basically, unbeknownst to them playing the video games they're playing, the challenges they're playing, recruited themselves into a group of rebels that are trying to, ultimately, they are trying to change the face of the world or maintain the face of the world. It doesn't really get into details in the first issues of that. But they come up against resistance from the government, a very violent resistance, basically full paramilitary people coming after these kids who have their own equipment and can do their own craziness and a certain amount of damage. And our main character, Thumbs, early on as teens, they get into a battle and he is severely crippled and gets put into a coma and is in a coma for many, many years. And then he is suddenly reawoken. Everybody else has pretty much lost their moms. Moms have been shut down because the internet itself has largely been crushed, and that's where the mom interlink is up. But he still has his. And his mom has been quietly, secretly hiding this entire time, but gaining knowledge. And now they are going to attempt to overthrow the current government. The current government is largely kind of a Luddite society in that they've pretty much banned the internet and heads-up displays and connected to the to the online, to the virtual world and whatnot. And they're wiping most of these rebels out, and a lot of the rebels are kind of virtual addicts and that sort of thing. And our main character, Thumbs, is trying to find his sister and his best friend, Nina, who survived the attack that put him into a coma. She loses her arm in that, but she's still kind of trying to run as much of the rebel force as we can. Get to issue part 3 here, and we kind of explain who the government is, who the Luddites are, who their what their philosophy is. We find out there's these 2 pillars of the society are driving out the whole internet thing. One of them, supposedly, history is their son was cyberbullied to the point of committing suicide, so he's against social media, the internet, and all that one. And the other one was a corporate hierarchy person who gets outed by their ex, shows some videos of them in the process of being of the videos of them being shown to them without their knowledge. they do their own attempt at cyber attack on this ex-lover. It blows up in their faces and their lives are basically destroyed. So they're against. So there's this running commentary, social commentary of kind of like the internet right now and social media and a lot of its aches and pains and woes and that sort of thing. Thumbs' little sister is like a star pupil with the government, with the Luddite society. She thinks her brother's dead. Thinks her brother is one of the main, evil architects and that sort of thing. There's a little bit of her showing her potentially falling in love with a student. It's kind of a forbidden love because not only is the internet kind of owned, it's very straight-laced. It's very conservative, and I say conservative not in the political sense for politics in the United States, more just a general kind of a conservative, a much more reserved society. All the kids wear uniforms. It's like I said, just very much more reserved. So there's this kind of forbidden fruit thing with this potential boyfriend she might be having or whatever, and that gets interrupted in this because they discover that Thumbs is functioning and has an operational mom. It's a major threat because moms can kind of like take control of all kinds of computerized equipment, because there's still computerized equipment. It's just not, there's no internet kind of a thing. But somehow mom is able to lock into stuff. She locks into a tank at one point in this. And so they're going to save his sister, he believes, and save youth and the kids and free speech and free thought and all of that kind of stuff. And potentially it's going to go horribly wrong in the process of that. The writer is Sean Lewis. I don't think I've read anything of Sean Lewis. He does like The Few, Coyotes, Saints, stuff like that. Things I've heard other people talk about. And the art is by Hayden Sherman, who does the art for Vault Comics, Wasted Space, which I'm a huge fan. I really like his art in there. In this, he actually does his own coloring also. It is a very kind of a very basic grays, mostly pinks. Largely is our entire color. There is he's coming out of a coma. This entire kind of a deal. This is like a virtual reality that Nina, his best friend, is learning about society and how this is all set up and why things are the way they are. Kind of a deal. But here's the soldiers that are hunting him down at the old trailer park he used to live at. Here is the, let's see here. This is like the first kiss getting interrupted of his sister and the Luddites. So this is all really mostly grays and that sort of thing. And you find out this huge secret about all this. Because there was a guy who created the moms and created this whole video game thing and whatnot, and there's some interesting exposure of that character in this issue also, along with us learning about the guys that are part of this new society of Luddites, for lack of any other word for me to call them, whatnot. And there's this little backup story in this thing too that is more like a comic book. See, it's a comic book of the era kind of a thing there. Captain Future and the Captain's Academy. And it's kind of fun. It's cool. Just check the art out, black and white art from this artist also. So even tells you back there, hey, where it's from. Anyway, so I really enjoy the book. It's super, as far as price goes, it's $4.99. It is a hard plastic cover stock. It is a thick book. I didn't actually count pages in it, but it is a hefty, thick book. It is of good design. The fact that it's a thick book, but it is stapled. It's not square bound, so you can lay it open, so you can get full pages of art. And the perfect way, in my opinion, to read this sort of thing. Like I said, just really enjoy it. It's an interesting thing. Don't see very many people talking about it, so I just kind of wanted to bring it up as a book that, hey, if you like kind of near future commentary on society, plus it has its own story going on too. maybe check that out. Book that is definitely a challenge to read. I'm not 100% on the book as far as where it's going and what's going on, but I really do enjoy it. This is Test. It is from Vault Comics. This is issue number 2. There, your highway sign, issue number 2. This is by Chris Sebela. Jen Hickman does the arts. Saxon, I think, is the colors. Kind of what you get on the front here is what you get inside. Cool thing about Vault Comics is they're always a wraparound cover of sorts. Not that the back necessarily has a ton to it, but it is. And on the back there, on most of the Vault Comics, it'll give you a blurb about what the comic's about. This one less so, keeps it more ambiguous. Orphan, human guinea pig, body hacker, future addict, corporate asset, Alf Null. And the main character in this, his name is Alf Null. Alf is a body modder in the highest degree. He starts out his young life. He loses his family, we find out, and to make ends meet while he's living on the street, he donates blood. Then he starts signing up for test programs from pharmaceutical companies. The money's great, so he's doing it for the money to start out with. Then he just kind of becomes addicted to the whole altering himself kind of a thing. He lies. He creates all kinds of fake IDs to get into more testings and that sort of things. Then he starts getting into body modifications. He signs up with some nebulous corporate entity that is now hunting him because he is on the run, trying to find. Originally, this is issue number 2. He's trying to find this supposedly magical city of the future that's not on any map. It only appears every so often, and he seems to have ran the right logarithms and that sort of thing to have found the city of the future. So he's very excited about that, but also suspicious of what's going on. But he has modified himself, like he's got magnets in his fingertips. He's constantly putting actual hardware and software in and out of his body, sort of a thing. He talks about at one point he had a chip in his ankle that would vibrate on his ankle bone when he was facing north, when he was facing the North Star. He reached a point where he intuitively knew which direction was north, and he could feel that tingle even after he took the thing out. So he's just really into altering himself. The money becomes no longer the thing. It's just this kind of, where can I go? What can I do? The attic is the next, what's the next thing? To be the future man, the future or whatever. So he has ran away to find this town. This corporation's out to get him, to find him, to bring him back because he's signed all these non-disclosure agreements that basically signed his life away. He is the canary in the cave, he finds out, in that they've put stuff in him that they expect to break, and they expect him to fall apart, and they expect him to go to pieces because they want that. You have to test, you have to break something. The best data you're going to get is when you break something, they say. So he is facing that. He's in this town of the future. He gets scooped up initially by a group of Luddites, I'm using that word again, get your dictionaries out, who are trying to fight against their city. They feel like the soul of their city is gone, which kind of is, because the mayor of the place is and his mom have sold the town out. They are the town of the future. They keep testing the new things. They're making a boatload of money on it, and they're kind of immortal, sort of a deal, all going along with it. But it's still a commentary on. It's still kind of a commentary on us as a society continuing to stretch for the next new thing, and being addicted to, the equivalent of, I got the newest iPhone or I got the newest computer, even though your old one was fine. You got to keep moving forward with the next new whatever, and a lot of that is that in this case. Anyway, he becomes disenfranchised with this town once he finds out what it's all about. The corporate stooges just about get him at one point. At one point in the book, he does escape, but in the very last page, it's all kind of thrown in his face about the whole, him being the canary testing this stuff, and he's going to break, and he wakes up in a room full of other patients. He's hooked up to wires and IVs and whatnot, and almost all the other patients in the room are dead or dying. I mean, blood's pouring out of their eyes and whatnot, and he seems okay. So we'll see what happens next in issue 3 of Test. An interesting book. It's really intriguing. I don't know where it's going. I don't always know exactly what it's talking about. But I like listening to the character ramble about society, about our kind of addiction to the next whatever, and his kind of and this character Alf's exploration of that. So I'm curious to see what that is going to bring us. And the final comic I want to talk about is like my new absolutely favorite comic. I love it to death. I just want to have more and more of it, and I hope it goes for forever. It's not going to. The title alone tells you forever that it's not going to last forever. But that is Coffin Bound, another Image Comics book. This is written by Dan Watters. Currently, right now, you've heard me talk quite a bit about Dan Watters. He writes Lucifer, which I love that book. That Vertigo book is excellent right now. Art by Danny, kind of a new artist to me. Just absolutely love the artwork in the book. It is really cool. It's got all the right kind of vibes to it. Brad Simpson, I will say though, that's the colorist, does an outstanding job. The colors in this thing are just warm and rich and really dynamic and that sort of thing. So I'm excited about that too. So to make this as easy as possible, because I know some people are like, well, I don't know what's going on. I kind of dig it, but I have no idea, what's going on in it. This is my meltdown of what's going on in here. It's basically a story about a woman who knows that her time is limited. She is going to die. And because she knows that, she is basically going to go back and potentially fix or correct or whatever she needs to do about all the stuff she's done in her life. Now, maybe that's watering it down too simple, but that's how I see it. That's how the first issue reads to me if I take it down to its basic plot line. This woman, Isabel, has found out that she is going to die. She is coffin bound, and she is going to go back through her life, and she's going to expunge herself. That's the basics of it. It is covered in I think metaphor. I think that it uses an incredible poetic language throughout it. I think it also kind of poetically looks at society once again. I like books that kind of are giving a hard look to different things about our current times or times in the past. I think it does a lot of that in this book. And then it just has a good time. It just kind of, it throws out this kind of potentially psychic world of people who have slight powers, and we don't know why. And that's something clearly we're either going to explore or we're going to accept that that's part of this world. But for me, that doesn't make it confusing. That adds to the interest of this very basic plot. So, what is she dying from? There's a contract killer has been hired to kill her. And this contract killer is a psychopomp. He can eat the earth and get whatever impressions he needs from that to hunt somebody down. We find out that the person who hired the guy to hunt down Isabel ends up being a guy who actually loves Isabel. Isabel is his muse, and what better inspiration to bring out the god of poetry other than to have your muse die, sort of a thing. So in a kind of a fit of I need inspiration, he hired this uber contract killer. Now he tries to take it back. He is in a club. He finds out this has happened. He races off to try and stop this guy from hunting her down. The Earth Eater, there he is, kind of a Leatherface looking crazy kind of a guy. It backfires. He tries to fire the guy, and he can't do it. Izzy has this a character who's following her along. He's a vulture, and he's literally a vulture. He's a skeleton of a vulture inside of a cage that's like a head, and it's got a body on it. Now, I wonder, is Vulture really exist, or is Vulture like her Jiminy Cricket? Is Vulture her following her along, her imaginary sidekick? Is he more metaphor than real? I don't know. But that's that. I'm interested to find that out. I mean, I'm interested in exploring that. Like I said, the language in the book is brilliant. It's poetic. It's high art. It's got great funnies in it. It's got some random curios that I just like, kind of thing. She talks to her manager at one point. He's clearly an agoraphobe. He doesn't like the outside. Surfaces repulse him because surfaces obviously can catch dirt on it and stuff like that. So he doesn't like any of that stuff. So she has this conversation about this manager. The manager say, "Hey, I'm going to call some people. I'm hoping I can help you out." She gets off the phone with the manager, and the vulture's like, who is that? And she's like, "Oh, this is my manager." And he's like, "Well, what does he manage?" And her reply is to make it through each day as it comes. So by the end of this, and it also talks about her. So she knows that she figures if the world doesn't want her, she's going to remove herself from the world. So she has to expunge all of the things that she's done. So she's traveling back to all these things. The first one she's going to go to is to an ex-lover who is a prophet of some sort, and we're introduced to this ex-lover as they're prophesizing that the next person that comes to him is ultimately going to be the death of them, and it is coming very soon. And it ends up being Izzy, at the end of it. So clearly the book's not going to go on forever. But I really want it to sell. I want people to pick it up. I want people to explore it, enjoy the weirdness of it, because there's definitely some weird stuff on there. Izzy obviously has some sort of powers. She can kind of, I don't know, can massage reality in some sense. There's some higher killers come to kill her, to put her out of her misery before the Earth Eater gets to her. She gets into a gunfight with them. She has to put together her gun because her gun's in bits and pieces. And she literally has her gun in her hand, and as the guys are attacking her, she says bang, and one of the guys gets shot through the neck. She's not aiming the gun. She's not actually shooting it. She's just saying it, and the gun falls apart on her. There's another point where the car that she's driving breaks down, and she just kind of grabs some random parts and shoves into the car, and that satisfies the car's needs to get them down the road to the next thing. It's just a lovely book. This guy who hired the contract killer, who sees Izzy as his muse, he cracks me up because he looks like Adam Ant. I mean, not facially, but I mean, he's wearing little feathers. He's wearing the little military coat. I don't know. But this, like I said, the Danny art, we're going to see some Danny art in some of the big two, I think, here pretty soon. They did some work for there, so I'm intrigued by that too, because like I said, I just really kind of dig this artist, the colors too, man, just brilliant. Really like the book. I mean, it has curiosities, it has head scratchers in it, but the basic of the comic isn't complicated. I think the little stuff that's all around it to window dress it and give it more of a poetic feel to it is there, and I'm all for embracing that. But like I said, I don't think it's a non-understandable book, kind of a thing. So, I mean, she kind of explains in a sense her adventure, why she's doing this, because she had met a guy, like a hobo or that sort of a thing, who was in a lot of pain, had a miserable life, but had these happy moments in these pictures, and he's burning these pictures in a burn barrel. So he's burning, and so the last he sees is this happy stuff, and then he's gone, and the stuff's burnt away and flies away, and that's a great release sort of a thing, until eventually he seems to be, the next morning he's gone, and so that's kind of her plan, maybe, kind of a thing. But I said, really, really dig the book. It's got a great vibe to it. Dan Waters is an awesome writer. His use of language is I don't know. I don't think brilliant, for me, is an understatement. He uses it some, restrainted in Lucifer, and he doesn't have those people to like get in his way of him having characters speak in a more eloquent fashion and whatnot, and I just, it excites me. So I want people to check the book out. I want people to hang on to the book. Those people have kind of like, well, is there enough here? Is there enough here to make me, keep going? Has it left me with too many questions? I think the adventure's set. Like I keep saying, I think the adventure's set. I think we know what the adventure's going to be. Now we get to explore the grand part of what that adventure's going to be. Kind of a thing. So, super excited. Super excited about that. Great book. That is it. Try to keep this not too long. I'll be back whenever. At some point, I'm going to get caught up on my comics, because not having done weekly comics, I've kind of gotten behind, and I may jump into talking about all of my comics at some point. Anyway, if you watch this, thanks a lot. Let me know what you think. Am I way off? Am I simplifying Coffin Bound too much? You've read the other books. You hate them. You hate Coffin Bound. Let me know. I'll have an argument with you on it, because it's the internet, and that's what the internet's about, right? Anyway, thanks for watching, and until next time, have a great one.